a stranger in a strange land.
I did one.
Oh my gosh. It's just the world is just weird.
It's
Weird. Gonna get weirder.
yeah.
60 seconds. He should be 60 seconds. Huh? Do you have 60 seconds? According to my watch, you've got 2 minutes. 2 minutes? Oh. This is about the time he walks in. He timed it down. It's like he's not going to be any place, but he absolutely has to be there. Probably sitting outside the door looking at the watch. That's right, that's right. He sits out in his car and slowly takes the door. He does it now because he has a reputation. Well, that is important. Exactly. He'll be here. Oh, he always walks in and like the. Oh, here he comes, here he comes. I just saw his shadow. Just saw his walk. Here he comes. With the door open. Here he comes, running down the hall. It works. Huh? Oh, he ran down the hall. We do have 4. Yeah, we do have nothing. He's going to be here. You got 30 seconds. So do we have how much time do we have? See, told you. A second to spare for my watch.
Like 35 minutes. Are you ready, Jen? Okay, it's just past 6:30, and we welcome all of you to the January 21st Planning Commission meeting. It's Tuesday in 2020, and we do have a quorum of the board here with 2 members absent, which we knew about. And our first item of business, if there are no conflicts, is approval of the minutes from January 7th. If you all have had time to look at them either online or in your packet, which might or might not have come. Did you get that in the mail?
Yeah, today I got mine.
Okay. So I guess some of us had it. All right. Any comments or corrections, Mrs. Woolman?
Madam Chair, there are 2 minor errors that I would like to point out on page 4. First paragraph, 6 lines up from the bottom, the phrase starts, "This amendment was," and then the word "to" is there because. And I think the word "to" needs to be eliminated. So it'll read, "This amendment was because if you changed the category to multifamily density." First paragraph.
Oh, up here.
Oh.
Yeah.
6 lines up.
Yeah, from the bottom, starting "This amendment."
Okay. And you wanted to take out the word
"To."
was, oh. Okay.
Okay, and the second one is the next full paragraph starting with the words "there were discussions." It's the fourth line down. Number of responses. It should be number of referral responses.
Singular.
Correct.
Okay. We have 2 suggested grammar corrections to the minutes. Any other comments? Or can we entertain a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to accept the minutes as amended.
Jamie Woolman makes a motion to accept the minutes as amended. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Brockelman offers a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Our second item for consideration is approval of the bylaws with the proposed amendments. Jan, do you want to make some comments?
I think the Jan Yeckie's Planning Division Manager. I think the main thing would be if you all saw additional changes or corrections needed. I did note one thing that's super minor. It's where we talked about making a motion for things that the Planning Commission would be a recommending body on. It said rezoning, and I filled in, I think I took out final development plan and filled in specific development plan. Some SDPs are recommended to the board, some are approved by the Planning Commission, so I was just going to change that to general development plan because those are always recommended to the board. They were just examples of things that the Planning Commission would serve as a recommending body for.
Can you just summarize the general changes that were made compared to the previous?
Sure.
Make sure that it matches the new planning process.
So the first, let me take my clip off here. The first pages that you have is just a clean version without all the redlining, because I personally find it very difficult to read something that's redlined and know if it makes sense or not. So that's just a clean version of what's already in here. And then the redline version shows the changes. What spurred this change was that we adopted a reorganized land development code in 2019. So we had some code references in here that no longer worked because they're now in different sections or subsections or whatever. So that was really what spurred it. And then I actually just read through to make sure that things made sense. Did things jump out at me like we don't very often do final development plans anymore. Now we do specific development plans or general development plans instead of preliminary development plans, things like that. There was in the definitions, I made a slight adjustment to commission member. It said a county, a person. It said a county resident. At some point, I had changed it to read a person residing in the unincorporated county to clarify that it's unincorporated rather than in one of the cities. But I had it residing in or owning property in, which was my understanding. But when I went back and read the land development code, it very specifically says residing in. So I adjusted that a little bit. We've had some confusion in the past over the use of the term public meeting versus public hearing. So I added a term under definitions for public meeting, just explaining that can include public hearings, but it can include other things too, like study sessions, so that we can be clear. There are some typo or just awkward wording issues in here that were adjusted. That probably is most of these. There is one thing in here that has not changed the county attorney's office and staff had talked about whether or not the planning commission minutes should actually reside with the clerk and recorder's office, but they don't take the minutes, so I don't know whether or not they would be willing to be the custodian of the minutes. So that has not changed. If we find out in the future that that should change, then we'll come back to you. But in the meantime, it's going to continue to say that the minutes reside with the planning division of Public Works and Development. There was another item for possible discussion, which was whether or not you were comfortable with the percentage of meetings that a planning commission member should attend during the year. It's at 75% right now. If we had all 24 meetings, that means you could miss like 6 meetings a year, which sounds kind of high, but you know, we have people who travel for work, and sometimes there are family reunions that you have to plan around, or there could be an illness. So that might be reasonable, and we don't very often hold all 24 meetings in a year. We usually have some that are canceled. So if you want to discuss that, we can. If you're comfortable with the way it is, we'll just keep it the way it is. There's an addition that changes to the bylaws will be submitted to the Board of County Commissioners for acceptance prior to becoming effective. That's something that we just recently found out during the training with a new BOCC administrator that we have. And we haven't found any code requirements or resolutions or anything like that, or statutory requirements that say that this has to be done in a public meeting, like adopted by resolution by the board. So we're actually scheduled on February 3rd to take any changes that you approve this evening to the board in what we call a drop-in study session. They're like 10 minutes long. We just basically walk in, tell the board what's going on, and then they can either let us know we'd like a more detailed study session, or we'd like to have this placed on a consent agenda, and then we can follow up. Or if they're comfortable with it, they can say, yeah, we're good to go. These can be effective. Again, just some more clarifications. We had already clarified what could happen if there's a tie vote. Made pretty much the same clarification that if a motion fails for a lack of a second versus a tie vote, that because you're a recommending body and we want you to be able to give the best recommendation to the board possible, we usually ask you if you want to make a substitute motion. Ideally, we'd love to send them either a hands-down recommendation for approval with reasons or a recommendation for denial with reasons. So we have a really clear case, as opposed to, gee, we just couldn't get a second, or we had a tie vote, so we're just sending a denial. I think it's a little harsh for an applicant who's like put a lot into their project, and it doesn't really help to provide guidance to the board. So we have that option in there. Now, if you can't get to that point, then yeah, it goes forward as denial. As recommending denial. We had some tweaking of the wording on making sure that all discussions are on the public record, not having sidebar conversations or that sort of thing during a hearing, and why an executive session could be called. Just clarified that if we're going to have additional meetings, that those could be scheduled in consultation with the Planning Commission. We're not going to just add them randomly to the calendar and say, hey, Planning Commission, you're expected to show up. So we clarified that. Clarified that study sessions can include general or subject-specific training for planning commissioners. clarified a little bit that the chair may limit additional public comment to new information, because as you know, when we have really contentious items in a room full of people, if everybody says the same thing over and over and over, we don't ever get through it. So we're here all night. So, letting people know, you can just stand up and say, I agree with the prior comments made, and limit the additional comment to new information. Clarifying that comments are directed to the Planning Commission and not a dialogue between whoever's standing at the podium and whoever's here to listen. Clarified that our minutes are currently summary form rather than like very detailed full minutes, because the audio recording is the official record of the meeting. So we don't do very literal translation, transcription type minutes. Made a clarification on comprehensive plan amendments, that voting by the Planning Commission pertains to those amendments that actually require a public hearing. Sometime back, we made a change to the comprehensive plan amendment procedure to allow some administrative amendments. So we bring those to the Planning Commission. We have a discussion, a consultation with you, kind of get the general nod, yeah, this sounds like a good change, but then we go ahead and make the change to the comprehensive plan without actually noticing and scheduling a public hearing. So I just wanted to clarify that the voting by the Planning Commission is for those items that actually require a hearing on the comp plan. Clarifying again that the record of the meeting is officially the audio recording, that we do summary minutes, and that we may also provide video recording and live streaming of the meeting, which we try to do just as a courtesy for people who maybe can't get to the meeting, want to watch it later, maybe don't want to drive in from the East County if they don't need to make public comment. So that's the gist of the changes. If you're comfortable with that, you can make a motion to approve it. If you have anything you'd like to discuss further, we can do that.
That's helpful. I also would like to publicly acknowledge Jamie Woolman, who went over these very carefully and made, based on her experience, and
helped us clean up that
detail
language. Yes, thank you.
No, I think.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Does anybody have any other questions?
I think JB, you should make the motion.
Yes.
I am going to. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the draft bylaws as presented with the one change that Jan noted at the beginning that will be incorporated into the final form of the bylaws.
Okay, we have a motion to approve with the suggested thing we wait on. Is there a second for the motion?
I'll second.
Mr. Paul has seconded the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The motion carries. The bylaws are adopted as rewritten. Okay, our next item is item number 1 under regular items, case number LR19-003, the dirt track, and Larry Mugler will give us a summary.
Good evening, Larry Mugler, Long Range Planner. And again, this is case number LR 19003 with the kind of strange name, which we'll explain, the Dirt Track Urban Reserve Amendment. This is a staff proposed change to the comprehensive plan. It affects the map. We have noticed it in both the Villager and the I-70 Scout, since this is out on the Eastern Plains, and we've received the affidavits from both papers that it was published. This is how the comprehensive plan currently designates this area. There are several urban reserve areas on the comprehensive plan map. This is one of those. This is located along I-70. That's the red line across there between Byers and Deer Trail. And it was the site of the interstate dog racing track many, many years ago. The most recent proposal was to use it as a automobile racing facility. That's how it became called the Dirt Track Urban Reserve. That development was not successful, so it has been sitting pretty much vacant for a number of years. Urban reserves are defined in the comprehensive plan as sites where the county anticipates urban development happening sometime in the future. However, this particular site hasn't had really much happening on it ever since the dog facility closed. So in working with the property owners, we're proposing a change to the way this particular urban reserve is mapped. Just provide a little of the, detail. There are two parcels currently defined in the county system for this site. The northwest parcel is 69 acres, and the south parcel is 164. It does have access directly to the interstate at the northwest corner. There's an interchange there. And the railroad is the boundary on the north and east sides of the site. So what we're proposing is essentially to cut the urban reserve in half. That line, boundary line, would be further defined when the property owners go through a rezoning. As you can see, it doesn't follow the existing parcel line at all. So the southern part of it would be changed to match the surrounding designations of agriculture or use by special review. And at this point, the owners are proposing to make that into 35-acre parcels. But they are still anticipating trying to find an urban use for the northern half of the site and would like that to remain part of the urban reserve. I thought zooming a little bit on the aerial photo might help a little bit. You can see on that northern parcel the oval where the dog track was. The grandstand still exists, although in pretty poor shape, and I think it has asbestos, so even taking it down will be fairly expensive. There is a caretaker's cottage home on the site, but is also in a state where it needs some repair before someone could even live in that. The southern parcel, as you can see, is still in agricultural uses, not anything on it in terms of construction. Should the amendment, you approve the amendment tonight, you can see they're going to need to do a few things to match the site up to what the plan would be amended to show. They would need to re-subdivide the property to change these parcels into the development they would like to see. Supposedly at this point, probably a single parcel to the north, and then several 35-acre parcels on the southern part of the site. They would also have to revise. Currently, the site is under a PUD, which allows a automobile racing facility. So they're going to have to amend the PUD for whatever use it is they end up deciding to locate on the northern part of the parcel. But at this point, they are intending it to be an urban use rather than an agricultural or rural use. In your packet, we've got the comments from the referral agencies, except for the one I handed out at the beginning of the meeting. We forgot to get the CDOT comment in there. And looking back through it, it was important because they were one of them that had a specific comment and not just a no comment reply. Both CDOT and the Public Utilities Commission, the portion that regulates railroads, are supportive of the change because before, with the full urban reserve, they were very concerned about the ability of the railroad crossing and the interchange to handle the amount of activity that might take place on the full site. So both of them are much happier now with a much reduced facility But CDOT wanted to make sure that the property owners know that they will have to get an access permit that would review the impact to the ramps on I-70s, if there are any, and what changes might be needed at the railroad crossing. Under the previous proposal for the auto facility, they were, between the railroad and the state, they were going to require a full gate-controlled crossing there, and I think that's part of the expense that the landowner decided they couldn't absorb. And then Tri-County was the only other referral agency that had a comment, and they have kind of followed the water and wastewater facilities at the old track and said that while they were appropriate when the track was there, standards have increased, and it's likely that any development on the northern parcel is going to require some substantial water and wastewater infrastructure to be put in. Again, not a comprehensive plan issue, but will come up again when they propose a zoning change. And then we just wanted to show you that when we amend the map, this is what will be left is a dirt track urban reserve designation on a smaller parcel surrounded by the agricultural zoning area. That's my summary of the proposed amendment. I can answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? I guess not at this time.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, is the applicant here to make a presentation?
Technically, there isn't an applicant other than the staff.
Okay.
Property owners here if you have questions for them.
Okay, so the property owners are here?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Do you wish to make any comments? Okay. Are there any questions of the property owners from the planning commission? Okay, then we will open the public hearing if anybody wishes to come forward and make any comments. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the planning commission.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Yes. Mr. Chaffin.
In the case of LR 19-003, Dirt Track Urban Reserve Comprehensive Plan Amendment, the Planning Commission has read the proposed plan amendment and staff report and has considered additional information presented during the public hearing. We do find ourselves in agreement with staff findings 1 through 3 set forth in the staff report dated January 13, 2020, and therefore approve the application. We approve the application with the following conditions. 1, an attachment to this report illustrates the changes to be made to the plan map if the Planning Commission approves the request. Staff, in conjunction with the County Attorney's Office, is hereby authorized to update the map.
All right, Mr. Chaffin has made a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Brockelman has seconded the motion. Any other comments or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries unanimously. The Dirt Track Urban Reserve change is approved. Okay. We now moving on to a study session.
Madam Chair, could I point out there are 2 different dates on this. The staff report stated January 13 for the January 21 meeting.
Okay, you should clarify that this is done on January 21st.
Yep.
And Alan White will take up the study scope of work for the Tier 1.
Okay. Good evening, Commissioners. Alan White, Long Range Planner for the Planning Division. The This is a informational item, but we'd also like to get your concurrence to go ahead and start the process for preparing a sub-area plan for Tier 1 that we show on the comprehensive plan map. So tonight we'll, for those of you that don't recall or weren't here for the adoption of the comprehensive plan, we'll show you where Tier 1 is located, review the comprehensive plan strategy that calls for preparation of a sub-area plan. Reasons we think we should take a look at sub-area or Tier 1 sub-area plan now, review the scope of work and a timeline, and then answer any questions you may have. And ultimately, hopefully we get your concurrence to proceed with this work task. It's going to take a lot of staff time, and we want to make sure that you are aware that staff will have to commit that time to get this project done. As a reminder, Tier 1 is a swath of land adjacent to I-70 in the eastern portion of the county. It runs from the Prosper PUD, and that's that large purple area in the middle of the map, and runs over to the sub-area plan boundary for Strasburg. That's approximately where the Tier 1 label is on the map. And so the Tier 1 consists of that light yellow area where the Tier 1 label is underlined, and the urban reserve that's to the north of that Tier 1 labeling. So that's the area we'll be looking at. It's about 56 square miles in area. So it's a rather large area. It looks small on this map, but it's not, especially when you go out there and drive it. It's quite an expansive area. One of the strategies in the comprehensive plan is this one that I'm showing on the screen. The county will consider preparing sub-area plans for priority areas in the county, and there are several listed here, and towards the bottom of the list is Tier 1 in the urban reserve area. So preparation of this sub-area plan would be implementing a strategy of the comprehensive plan. One of the reasons that we think it's important to look at Tier 1 right now is that Denver's Aerotropolis and the Colorado Air and Spaceport are significant regional land uses and will dramatically impact future development in this corridor. At the time we adopted the comprehensive plan back in January of 2018, the Colorado Air and Spaceport had not yet received their site operator license from the FAA. It was in process, but that license wasn't obtained until October 2018. And the Air and Spaceport is the Colorado Air and Spaceport is the new name for Front Range Airport, in case you weren't aware of that. Also, Tier 1 was included in the City of Aurora's East Area Annexation study. That was a study that looked at a large area in Arapahoe County and looked at the feasibility of the City of Aurora annexing some or all of that area into the City of Aurora. Their comprehensive plan pulled back from that really large area, but did include Tier 1 as part of their adopted comprehensive plan. And as with the Air and Spaceport, the Aurora comprehensive plan wasn't adopted until October 2018, again about 6 or 8 months after our comprehensive plan was adopted. There are also some things going on in the transportation element of the county. This map shows where 2 studies are currently underway for existing interchange improvements. The X on the leftmost side of the map is the Watkins interchange on I-70, and Watkins Road provides access into the Prosper development. And so there's a study underway with CDOT and the county looking at interim and ultimate improvements to that interchange. And then farther east on the interstate, the other X is the road that leads into Bennett. I think it's Bennett's Main Street, and the county and Bennett are undertaking a study of improvements to the ramps at that interchange. In addition, the red dots on this map indicate interchanges, either existing or proposed interchanges that CDOT is looking at, the Colorado Department of Transportation is looking at a system feasibility study along this entire stretch of I-70 that essentially abuts the entire northern border of the Tier 1 sub-area. And in addition, the county is updating its transportation plan. And the reason I bring all these transportation items up is that the bottom note here is that future land use is a key determinant of future travel demand and roadway system needs. A sub-area plan would include recommended land uses and would go a long way to helping finalize those plans that I just mentioned. It would be a lot easier to have a sub-area plan and those recommended land uses to present to the folks doing the traffic modeling than just presenting them with urban reserve and agriculture. Here, you figure it out. So it's very important to have some pretty detailed land use information in those transportation studies. There are also some changes happening with the population out there. These next few slides are statistics that come from the American Community Survey. The census prepares on a rolling basis every 5 years. So I just wanted to show you that there are some changes happening out in Tier 1. Since 2010, the population has increased by 27% over the 10 years from 2010 to 2017. And back in 2015, 83% of the households had lived in their house in the prior year, and that jumped to 85% in just 2 years. So more people are living in the area longer, or fewer people are moving. Two ways to look at it. The population is younger than 2 years ago. The blue bars show the number of, or the percentage of persons in the age group on the left side of the graph, and you can see that the number of persons 18 or under increased by about 6%, and the age group 24 to 44 grew by about 4%. And what that tells us is that we've got a lot of young families out there. And even though the older population, 65 and over increased by 2%, that was offset by the changes in the 24 to 44 and less than 18 age groups. Married couples still make up a majority of the households, although the percentage has increased by about 4% in 2 years. And that further shows us that younger couples, married couples with young kids are present in the area and impacting schools and those kinds of things. Household income has remained relatively stable between 2015 and 2017, but it remains significantly higher than countywide averages, and even the rest of the county out east. Owner-occupied housing has increased by about 7% in just 2 years. And it exceeds, in Tier 1, it exceeds the percentage of owner-occupied housing countywide, 82% to 63%. Gotta hit the right button here. This chart shows our forecast for population out in the eastern part of the county. One of the reasons I wanted to show this slide is that the dramatic increase is projected for Tier 1 from approximately 2,600 people in 2010 to 35,000, over 35,000 people in the year 2040. We need to take another look at these forecasts. Part of the area in Tier 1 and these projections may have included the Prosper area, and that was rezoned, I believe, in 2014. So we need to take another look at these, not only the population forecast, but also the employment forecast, and make sure we have something that's realistic out there. These projections will be used to create some forecasts for demands for certain types of land uses. And 35,000 people demand a lot more land use for residential and commercial uses than a population of 15,000, for example. So we want to take a critical look at these forecasts and revise them as necessary. I mentioned the Air and Spaceport. The location is Front Range Airport. On the diagram on the left side of this slide, there's a box that says Transport Colorado. That's actually, the label is on top of the Air and Spaceport, but the X marks an example of a development that is in Aurora. Aurora is annexed out into this area. And on the right side of the slide is a picture of the development that is approved for this project called Transport Colorado. Just an example of the intensity of land uses that are being approved and proposed in that area just north of Tier 1. You can see on the bottom slide that the boundary on the south side of Transport Colorado is the I-70 highway. And on the south side of Interstate 70, we've got people that are advertising that land is for sale and ready for development. So there's a lot going on in this corridor. We're seeing some interest for land uses in the corridor, and obviously there are property owners that are in a position of wanting to sell property. We've prepared a scope of work, a draft scope of work, and we included that in the memo to Planning Commission tonight. And it indicates some of the major work tasks that we're going to need to complete to arrive at a sub-area plan eventually, maybe, for you to consider adopting as part of the comprehensive plan. We've broken the scope of work into 3 phases, and I'll get to that later on the next slide, but I wanted to emphasize that we're taking a really hard look at getting stakeholders involved in this process, and stakeholders being the town of Bennett and the city of Aurora, and actually Adams County, because all those jurisdictions have an interest in what happens in this corridor. landowners, school districts, water and sanitation districts, fire districts, all have a stake in what happens in this corridor. So we're going to make a very concerted effort to get the representatives of those agencies on our stakeholder advisory committee. And we don't want to meeting them to death, but we figure we need at least 5 meetings of that committee throughout this process. We want to have a very robust citizen involvement program, and so far we are working with the county communication services department to come up with a very involved citizen involvement program that right now includes putting together a project website that will be updated as we reach certain milestones in the timeline. Social media presence, we don't know exactly what that's going to be like yet or which social media we're going to use. We plan to undertake a citizen survey and try to get input into the vision or goals for the area. Probably be a printed version, an online version, and a paper version at our first open house. We're trying to coordinate the citizen survey with the timing of our first open house. And then something that I've done previously, and it's worked very well, is to have a presence at county and community events like the county fair to engage people in conversation about what they see happening or want to see happening in the area. So we'll find out, try to find out what those community events are and have a presence at those events. We anticipate 3 public open houses to get input and work with people to refine future land uses, goals, policies for the area. 5 planning commission study sessions, so we'll be seeing a lot of you throughout this process. 4 more after tonight. The study session tonight is our initial study session. And then our plan preparation will include developing alternative development scenarios, and we want to get feedback from the public and stakeholders on that, as well as from Planning Commission. From there, we'll develop a draft sub-area plan, and again, get input from the public and Planning Commission on that, and finally draft a final draft of the sub-area plan that will, again, put out for public review, and a final study session with the Planning Commission before we present the final document for adoption as a sub-area plan as part of the comprehensive plan. We anticipate this is going to take about a year. Right now, the red line indicates where we are now, the first study session of Planning Commission towards the latter part of January. This will need to be a little fluid as we go through this process. I've done enough of these that sometimes plans you can't adhere to them because something unexpected happens. If it happens like this, that's great, but we may need another stakeholder meeting. You may request another study session. So this is subject to change. That's why it says tentative timeline. So you can see on this bar chart phases of the project. We're in the preparatory phase right now. We're getting all our stakeholder information together, figuring out where we're going to meet the stakeholders and have our public open houses, trying to figure out logistics like that. And then phase 1 of the project will probably start in about a month, it's actually going on now, collecting data and updating some of the information that is included in Appendix C of the current comprehensive plan. That was the Tier 1 analysis that was done back in 2016. A lot of data to update, but it should go fairly quickly because a lot of the data is readily available. And then we'll report back. Well, we'll prepare a report summarizing the data, have our first open house, and initiate our public involvement process around that time. And then once we have that public open house and prepare summaries and prepare summaries of what we heard, then we'll come to Planning Commission with the study session and report to you what we found out so far. Then we start on phase 2, which is actually putting together the plan and putting together some alternative development scenarios, having another public open house, come back to you and report to you what we've heard and the direction we think we see this thing going. And then preparing a sub-area plan draft that we'll put out for public review for about 2 months. We want to make sure we give everybody an opportunity to look at that. We'll review the draft with you and make any changes before we have a third open house. And then after that, gather all that information from you, the commissioners, and the public, and put together a final draft with goals and policies about land use, transportation, implementation, all the things we talk about in the comprehensive plan, and then have one final study session before we go to public hearing, probably sometime, about this time next year in 2021. And then finish up with any final printing and editing. And then we'll have to come back and amend the comprehensive plan to take out any references to Tier 1 and, show a sub-area plan boundary or however it ends up. We'll need to make some changes to the overall comprehensive plan. And I should note that we're anticipating a sub-area plan, a separate plan, but it may be that we just need to tweak the comprehensive plan map and some of the policies and goals for Tier 1. So we may end up not with a separate document, but with beefed up goals and more detail for the goals and land uses for Tier 1 in the comprehensive plan. We don't know that yet, but that could be an option. I can answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions?
So the air and spaceport, right? I know the FAA has guidance regarding flight paths and such, and especially its proximity to DIA is going to also affect where planes take off and land. So it's great having all of these different stakeholders, right? Because the city of Aurora loves to come in after Arapahoe County pays for everything and then annex what taxpayers in Arapahoe County have paid for. But I was curious how much input you would seek from the FAA in terms of guidance from them, the standard stuff we know from Centennial Airport, how much involvement there is going to be with the FAA.
They need to be very involved, at least giving us information about what the flight paths are going to be, and I don't know, are there noise contours developed for the kinds of vehicles that will be using this facility? That's stuff we need to find out during our data collection phase, and probably throughout the entire process. I don't know that we'll see the entire picture just in one meeting with one report.
Yeah, certainly not. I mean, the development basically is just what's envisioned is just starting for
Mhm.
the air and spaceport right now.
Yeah.
So that's a work in progress as well.
Right.
Right now we know you're talking aircraft, not SpaceX kind of takeoffs and landings right now. We're not really talking about that, but obviously because of where Prosper is located and the proximity to the air and spaceport, that seems to be an interesting kind of companion to this study as well. So I was just curious, how much FAA's involvement was going to be sought.
This isn't a direct answer to your question. The simple answer is we need a lot of input from them. At the same time we're doing this planning effort, Adams County is undertaking a sub-area plan for around the spaceport. So we'll be coordinating, sharing information, and sort of acting as a check and balance on, really? Think that's a good land use for that area? Whatever the comments or input may be. So I think we'll be helping each other during that process.
Well, that's good, because I'm really curious as to what Aurora's input is going to be. I mean, obviously they love the commercial development to the north, right? I mean, it's warehousing and trucking facilities and tax dollars, or everybody loves tax dollars. So I'm just really interested in where Aurora is going with this as well, because certainly they're a huge stakeholder here.
I wanted to go back to this map. It's probably a better way to do this.
You do
Faster.
You do a very nice chart, by the way.
Aurora's comprehensive plan that they adopted in 2018 shows most of Tier 1 being residential and little nodes of commercial at every one of these interchanges. That's their plan for the area.
So they're interested in all of Tier 1.
It might have been just 2 miles south of I-70, not the full 4 miles. Once you start getting from 2 miles south, there's a lot of large lot development, 19-acre lots and 35-acre lots, that if I was a city planner, I'd say, we don't want to annex that. There's no real benefit to that.
Have they recently made, I feel like they're always on the move. I'm sleeping in their rabbit. Have they made recent I call them land grabs out there? I just feel like we're going to be putting in this behemoth effort, and they can come along and just take it all.
Like they usually do?
I mean, they don't tell you ahead of time what they're up to.
Well, this process you'll be involved in, and maybe we'll get a better idea of what their the only annexations that have happened recently in this area. You see sort of the Swiss cheese back there. These gray areas were annexed by Aurora, I think a couple of years ago.
Okay.
That's all I know of recently.
Until Prosper is developed, and then they'll grab Prosper.
You have to have willing landowners.
There will be. I mean, they can enclave it, right? I mean, they're really good at doing that too. Once they enclave it, 3 years, it's theirs.
I don't know if they can.
Especially when you're looking at the Tier 1 that they have an interest in.
Yeah.
Not the urban reserve, obviously. But it depends on their roads that they build too into the community.
I've always had a question about the statute for annexing enclaves. If it was multiple owners, can it be a unilateral annexation? I know if it's one owner, it can be done without landowner consent.
Well, if
There's
right. I mean,
400.
Prosper is going to take many years to build out. It's kind of like the Highlands Ranch, but smaller segments, just like Aurora has always done and like the City Centennial does, smaller segments of that can be surrounded, especially using roadways, and then it becomes an enclave, and then you see the domino theory. So that's why this is really interesting, because Prosper is projected to be such a large development that will have commercial and residential uses. Certainly to support that growth in population, it's really interesting to look at that corridor, the Tier 1 corridor in relation to Prosper. So that's very interesting to see what's going to happen, because I know that City of Aurora, there were some residents that weren't really thrilled with the prospect of Prosper either, even though it wasn't in their city. Just because of the transportation impacts, because, business and commercial use to support the growth there certainly is a concern.
Mm-hmm.
So, Ellen, on that map, that's the Front Range Airport up there?
Yes.
Okay, and Aurora's development is just south of that?
Correct.
South of I-70?
That's correct.
In the urban reserve?
No, I'm sorry. You said it's just north of I-70.
It's just north of I-70,
Yes.
just south of the Front Range Airport. So it's just north of the urban reserve?
Correct.
In Adams County.
In Adams County.
But it's still City of Aurora.
Right, but
The
they're
Adams County
all
part.
the way up there.
Yes, correct.
They're all
Correct.
the way up there.
Huh?
All the way,
Yes.
right?
But Watkins Road leads to
They're all
Prosper,
over.
right?
It does, yes.
Literally.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I didn't bring my pointer.
Because it's a nice commercial, a nice commercial development, so it's great for taxes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's for the same
Right.
reason that we don't enforce our law.
So all the triangle is Prosper
You always want to grab
and Sky Ranch.
high-end communities that are concentrated because of sales tax dollars.
Yep.
And new commercial.
But they're both underway.
Yes, that. Front Range Airport
They're already being
is
built,
prime
correct?
location.
That's correct.
Think 30 years down the
Oh my
road,
gosh,
think
that's
where
amazing.
Cape Canaveral is underwater. What's happening in Houston?
There's so many
40
oil
years down the road.
wells on
Or
it
just
now.
having access to this part of the country is just
I sometimes think
really
that that's
cool
the
thing.
direction.
Yeah, and the elevation
Taking
too.
instead of developing the land, because 2 years ago they went out there and started all the water treatment plant for the school.
Uh-huh.
Put in the road, everything, spent weeks on it. It's nothing but weeds. Nothing has occurred. Nothing.
On Prosper's water
On
treatment.
Prosper's land. Clear down to, south. There
Maybe
is
that's
absolutely
very good
nothing
news.
that has occurred. So I don't know where the direction is there, because it seems like the oil seems to be the priority out there
Okay.
on the land.
Sure.
Well, I know we're processing subdivision plats for that area. And they're doing some amendments to their PUD that you may see shortly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not much is coming up out of the ground because they got to do all this other stuff first.
How about Adams County? Are they on the march to get a lot of things underway, like that one development south of the airport? That looks pretty dense.
I don't know how to answer that. I know a lot of that area has been annexed by the city of Aurora, and so there's a lot of pockets of unincorporated Adams County, and they're trying to get a handle on what should this area look like in the
Like
future
the
as
T is
well.
Aurora.
They're vital. Yeah.
And I bet they already know what they want to do. I don't know.
Yeah. There's not a lot of detail in their comprehensive plan about this area.
Okay.
I appreciate the discussion. Great questions. Hopefully we'll have some answers as we go through this process. Is this something you think is worthwhile and think we should proceed with?
I think it's worthwhile because I just think those other jurisdictions they're thinking about the same property. So, I mean, if we're already on their map, I just don't know how forthright they'll be on what their intentions are.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question. Would you go back to I'm sorry, I know what they
No,
great
go
to
ahead.
check out. On the population, you've got the population growth out on the eastern plains in 2040, like 75,000 people on the eastern.
Whoop.
No,
Oh,
More.
forecasts.
There you go.
yeah, 71,000.
That's the combination of 35, 29.
Oh, that's everything. That's
Yeah.
You're not saying this is the Lyman area. I looked at that and I went, oh.
It should have said total probably.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Because I was really curious. I
That's-
thought, what's going on in this that I don't know about?
That's not another 70,000 people.
Okay.
It's the total.
So tier 3 is Lyman, Burlington, or no? That's a different county.
Yeah.
What is that? Deer Trail?
Tier 3 is everything that's not along the I-70 corridor.
Okay, all right.
Like,
Okay.
they don't even have names.
So Deer Trail's in tier 2. Yeah, right.
Tier 2, yes. And so is Byers. Well, and so is
Watkins.
the piece of Strasburg that's south of I-70.
Okay.
That includes all of the unincorporated towns, big or small, all the way past Deer Trail.
Tier 2. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that's a good clarification. Well, I thought Lyman would be booming.
The Lyman's in which Weld? Is it in Weld? Which county is it? Kit Carswitz?
Lyman is
Lincoln County.
Few counties removed from Arapahoe.
I guess they are not a stakeholder or tier 1.
No.
No, we're not. We're not going to get them involved.
Well, how about Bennett? Because I thought they were getting really busy for a while.
Bennett will definitely be involved. We met with the new planning director there, and he's very supportive of this effort and
Are they
really
not
wants to be involved.
enlarging their boundaries? I thought
We
they
haven't
were annexing.
We haven't seen any annexations in Arapahoe County.
Okay.
Are they looking at I-70 and the traffic on I-70? It's a little crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Until you get past Minute and Strasburg. It's just
Yeah. That's
be a bumper.
why CDOT's doing that system feasibility study.
Well, it seems like it's going to be changing rapidly.
And we want to be prepared for it. To help you make informed land use decisions.
Well, big surprise is Deer Trail. I tell you,
So I
I
just
did
think
pass Deer Trail 8 times in the last 6 months. Every time I say, there's some new development.
Yeah.
There's some new development. New houses right by I-70. It's just amazing.
well, a dialogue to me would be important with
Yeah.
all of these,
Yeah, absolutely.
but you don't have to tell them what we're up to.
I think you were just recording. Would you like to repeat that again? Just a little closer to the microphone.
By the time things are annexed, it was in play for a long time.
Yeah.
And Aurora has a tendency to, a long time ago, before we tried to form the first city of Centennial, we were on the annexation maps in the city of Aurora, and that really was scary. They didn't do it, but they were thinking about it.
I've seen heads nod
Yeah,
about
yeah, this is, yeah,
Absolutely.
go forward.
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Do you want
This
a
is
formal
good.
motion, or
Yeah.
can you just
I
feel the
think this
consensus?
is good enough. Yep.
The head nods are
The head nods are
The
good.
head nods are good. The little editorial comments provide
I think we're
substantive
very
guidance.
interested in what the other jurisdictions are going to be doing.
Well, and this process will hopefully bring that out. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen.
I guess that is the end of our agenda for the evening, and we can call the meeting adjourned, and our next meeting is February 4th.